اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد فصب عليهم ربك صوت عذاب إن ربك لبالمرصاد فأما الإنسان إذا ما ابتلاه ربه فأكرمه ونعمه فيقول ربي أكرمن وأما إذا ما ابتلاه فقدر عليه رزقه فيقول ربي أهانن كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
یہ ختم شاہان لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ یہ ختم شاہان لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ تمہارا دوست ہے تنہا تمہارا دوست ہے تنہا حبیب آ جاؤ یہ ختم شاہان لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ شہید کیسے ہوا بتاؤ گے آ کر تم حال مسلم بے کس سناؤ گے آ کر رقیہ تک ہے راستہ رقیہ تک ہے راستہ حبیب آ جاؤ یہ ختم شاہان لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ لگاؤ اس سے بھی انداز میری غربت کے جہاں پہ ابن علی لکھنا تھا وہاں میں نے دیا ہے ماں کا حوالہ دیا ہے ماں کا حوالہ حبیب آ جاؤ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، بتا رہا تھا اسے کوئی بھی نہیں ہے میرا، تو بولی ثانی زہرا حبیب آئے گا، ہے اس کو تم پہ بھروسہ، ہے اس کو تم پہ بھروسہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب میں شاہ نے
لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ۔
وہ جب یہ سنتی ہے کوفے سے آ رہے ہیں شقی، تو پوچھتی ہے ہمارا بھی آئے گا کوئی، دعائیں دیں گی سکینہ، دعائیں دیں گی سکینہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، صلوات اللہ محمد وعلیہ
اور محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔ نوک سینہ کے اوپر کہتا تھا فرق سرور، گھر لٹ گیا ہے میرا، مارا گیا برادر، اماں غریب ہوں میں، اماں غریب ہوں میں، اماں غریب ہوں میں، اماں غریب ہوں میں، اور اصغر سے خون سے میں نے دیکھو وضو کیا ہے، اس امتحان میں اس نے بھی
سرخرو کیا ہے اس کی لاحد بنا کر اماں غریب ہوں میں اماں غریب ہوں میں اماں غریب ہوں میں کس قدر ہوں پیاسا اماں بتاؤں کیوں کر سوکھا گلا تھا اتنا چلتا نہیں تھا خنجر قبضے میں رکھ کے قوسر اماں غریب ہوں میں اماں غریب ہوں میں اماں غریب ہوں میں کیسا باپ تھا جو اے دور امتحانی کہ روتی رہی سکینہ میں دے سکا نہ پانی آئے یقین کیوں کر اماں غریب ہوں میں اماں غریب ہوں میں اماں غریب ہوں میں آپ آ گئی ہے اماں یاد آ رہا ہے بچپن وہ ساتھ ساتھ چلنا اور اپنے گھر کا آنگن اب خاک کا ہے بستر اماں غریب ہوں میں 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 پر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ محمد صلوات
غریب کا یہ غریب سر ہے جو در بدر ہے غریب کا یہ غریب سر ہے ارے چلا تھا جس وقت اس پہ خنجر تھا گود میں فاطمہ کی یہ سر ارے کری تھی ست قدم پہ زینب گرا یہ سر جب زمین پہ کٹ کر اٹھایا زلفوں سے شمرنے سے ٹپک رہا تھا لہو زمین پر، غریب کا یہ غریب سر ہے، ارے سوار نو کے سینے پہ ہو کر چلا کر وہ بلا سے یہ سر، نظر ہے اکبر کے سر کی جانب، عجیب غربت کا ہے یہ منظر، کرے یہ اکبر سے جب بھی باتیں تو خون روتی ہے اس کی آنکھیں، غریب کا یہ غریب سر ہے، گری تھی ناکیس جب سکینہ، وہی سر بھی ٹھہر گیا تھا، نظر نہ آئی جب اس کو بیٹی، طرف کی زینب کی سمت دیکھا، کہا یہ زینب سے جلد جاؤ، میری سکینہ کا ڈھونڈ لاؤ، غریب کا یہ غریب سر ہے، ارے نظر پڑے جب بغیر کی سر پر، پکارے عباس کو طرف کر، تماچے جب بھی سکینہ کھائے، زمین پہ گر جائے خواہیے سے، کوئی جو عابد پہ ظلم ڈھایا، پکارے نیزے سے خائے خائے، غریب کا یہ غریب سر ہے، ستم یہ دربار میں ہوا تھا، غریب سر تشت میں رکھا تھا، یزید ڈانڈا نشین دی پر، یزید دادان شاہدی پر، شریک کو خس کو مارتا ہے، سکینہ عابد کو دیکھتی تھی، پدر کی غربت پہ رو رہی تھی، غریب سر یہ غریب سر ہے، جو در بدر ہے غریب کا یہ غریب سر ہے۔
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا، اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. ارے قیدی کہتا ہے کوئی، قیدی کہتا ہے کوئی، کوئی یتیمہ اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. میں بیاں کیسے کروں اپنی مصیبت تم سے، ہے کیا کروں اپنے تماچوں کی شکایت تم سے. ارے سنتی ہوں دادی نے کھایا تھا تماچا بابا، ہے اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. نیل رخساروں پہ بینائی بھی جس کی کم ہو، ارے عمر ہو 4 برس اور کمر بھی خم ہو. آپ نے دیکھی ہے کیا ایسی ضعیفہ بابا، اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. اور آپ تھے دور تو میں سارے ستم سہتی رہی. ارے روپڑی کوفے کے دربار میں میں سہ نہ سکی. ارے آپ کے سامنے جب شمر نے مارا بابا، اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. اس گھڑی ڈھونڈ رہی تھی میں چچا جان کا سر، ارے کیسے کیسے بتلاؤں کہ کیا گزری تیری بیٹی پر. ارے مجھ کو ظالم نے کنیزی میں جو مانگا بابا اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. اور خون بے شیر سے اندازہ کیا تھا میں نے. ارے آپ کا چہرہ تو پہچانے لیا تھا میں نے. آپ پہچانو گے کیسے میرا چہرہ بابا. اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. اور سب یتیمان مجھے کہتے ہیں یہاں راہوں میں. ارے کہہ دو امو سے کہ آ جائے میری باہوں میں. ارے میں نہ مانگوں گی کبھی پانی دوبارہ بابا. اب مجھے کوئی سکینہ نہیں کہتا بابا. پر محمد آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم.
Assalamu alaikum. If I can ask all mu'mineen to please, we're mastering Majlis. Inshallah, if we can recite Surah Al-Fatiha for our marhumeen, our grandparents who instilled the love of the Ahlul Bayt within us, and all those who don't have anyone to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for them. Al-Fatiha. With that, if you can ask the mu'min to please move forward, and we'll invite Sheikh Mohammed Abbas Panju to the front with the loud salawat ala Mohammed wa ali Mohammed.
حیدری حسینیت زندہ باد حسینیت زندہ باد یزیدیت مردہ باد دشمنان اہل بیت لعنت اہل صفیفات لعنت الفاتحہ.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وعلى منكري فضائلهم وعلى من شرك في ولايتهم من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. آمين رب العالمين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب الغرباء، يا مظلوم كربلاء، السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته، السلام على من الإجابة تحت قبته، السلام على ساكن كربلاء. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي، يا سادتي، فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، لما قال محمد بن حنفية لأخيه سيد الشهداء أبا عبد الله الحسين: أنا خائف لك إن خرجت من مدينة جدك الرسول. فأجابه أبا عبد الله روحي له الفداء وهو قائل: شاء الله أن يراني قتيلا. فقال له أخيه محمد بن حنفية: فأخاف على حريمك. فأجابه سيد الشهداء قائلا شاء الله أن يراهن صبايا. صدق المولى وآمنا به. نوروا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أحبائي, a few nights back I had spoken with some of the mu'mineen about the sabaya of Ali Muhammad. And the sabaya is a term that is given to those family members of Ali Muhammad who were taken as prisoners. Sabaya is a term that means prisoners. And when we say sabaya Ali Muhammad, a term that is given to those members of Bani Hashim from the family of Ahlul Bayt that were taken as prisoners on the 11th of Muharram from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. And we said that the number of the people who were taken prisoners, according to what is most muwathaq, closer to reality between the muhaqqiqeen, is that the number of the sabaya, people who were taken prisoner from the camp of Imam Al-Hussain, is a number that ranges from 60 to 100, between men, children and women. And even though Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi in Nafas al-Mahmum rahmatullah alayhi states that the number of people who were taken as sabaya, he places the number at 20. Zahiran, what is apparent is that this number 20 is perhaps an elaboration of 20 known women from the family of Bani Hashim, because Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi narrates this, what is apparent from Kitab al-Kamil of Sheikh al-Bahai. When you come closer to the research, you find that the number is closer, or when you perform research which is more in-depth, you find that the number is closer to between 60 and 100. And you find that if you want to understand who was in this kafila, you are able to do a taqsim, or you are able to place the prisoners of Bani Hashim into certain categories. You had the males, you had 5 males who were taken as prisoners, Imam Sajjad, Imam al-Baqir, and 3 sons from Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba. Hassan al-Muthanna, who fought, was injured, his hand was severed, fainted, and they thought that he was dead. On the 11th of Muharram, when they came to behead him, they found him alive and breathing. They took him as a prisoner. And then Zayd and Amr, the 2 younger brothers of Shah Qasim alayhi salam. These were 5 men that were taken prisoners. So the first category is men. The second category is the daughters of Amirul Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. From whom, by way of example, we have Aqilat Bani Hashim, Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra, we have her sister Sayyidah Kulthum. But in addition to these 2 daughters of Amirul Mu'mineen, there were other daughters of Amirul Mu'mineen who were present in Karbala and taken as prisoners. One of them being Sayyidah Sukaina, daughter of Amirul Mu'mineen, who is buried in present day Sham, Daraya. She returned back to Sham with Sayyidah Zainab upon being exiled from Medina. Another daughter of Amirul Mu'mineen by the name of Sayyidah Ruqayya, who was the wife of Imam Muslim bin Aqil. Another daughter of Amirul Mu'mineen was Sayyidah Khadija bint Amirul Mu'mineen. And she was the first of the women as prisoners to become Shahida. You find her mazar, her markat, her place of ziyarah, is right by Masjid al-Kufa. Next to Babul Field, there is a Maqam Khadija bint Amir al-Mu'mineen. And she was the first woman, the daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen, who passed away, was martyred on this journey from Karbala to Kufa. And from Kufa to Sham, she passed away in Kufa. For you have the men, you have the daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and then you have the wives of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the widows. From the widows of Amir al-Mu'mineen, historians have mentioned at least 2 of them were present in Karbala. So you have the males, you have the daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you have the widows of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and then you have the widows of Imam Al-Hussain, and then you have the daughters of Imam Al-Hussain, and then you have number 6, the widows from Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba. And then you have the daughters of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba. And from the daughters of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, one of them is known as Sayyida Sharifa. Sayyida Sharifa bint Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba. Sharifa in essence is a title for Sayyida or Alawiyya, her name being Fatima. And there is no istighrab that you find a number of the sons of Ahlul Bayt were named Ali, and their daughters, multiple daughters, were named as Fatima. Sayyida Sharifa was the second woman from the Sabaya of Ali Muhammad to become Shahida in this journey from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. Because as they left Kufa, they went towards, on their journey to Sham from Kufa, they went towards the path of Hilla. And as they reached Hilla, the daughter of Imam Hassan alayhi salam became Shahida. Until Mosul, Tikrit, Sinjar, when they reached Ba'al-Bak, Sayyida Khawla became Shahida. A little after Ba'al-Bak, the other daughter of Imam Al-Hussain, Sayyida Safiya, became Shahida. And they have all these shrines that are there to mark. For you have the males, you have the widows of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Widows of Imam al-Hassan, daughters of Imam al-Hassan. Widows of Imam al-Hussain, the daughters of Imam al-Hussain. 6, 7. 8th category is the women and the daughters of the Shuhada. So you have the women and the daughters of the Shuhada. For example, Habib bin Madahir had a brother by the name of Ali ibn Madahir. Ali ibn Madahir's wife was taken as a prisoner together with Sayyida Zainab. And then in addition to that, you have Wahab, the Christian who embraced Tashayyu, was in Karbala with his mother and his newly wed wife, his bride. They were married for less than 20 days, according to majority of the narrations. Sayyida Haniya, his wife, was taken as a prisoner, and it was from her wasiyah that she would allow her husband, or she's happy for her husband to go into war and become shaheed on the condition that she stays as a prisoner with Sayyida Zainab. Shufal Wilaya. In addition to this, you have the women of Bani Hashim who don't fall from the categories of the daughters of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Hassan or Imam al-Hussain. For example, from this you have Sayyida Lubaba, who was the widow of Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam. The 10th category of women are those women who were affiliated and associated with Ahlul Bayt and not in the first 9 categories. And an example of this is Sayyida Fidda alayha salam. Sayyida Fidda was an affiliate of Ahlul Bayt who was not in these first 9 categories, who was a prisoner and accompanied Sayyida Zainab. And today, inshallah, the niyyah is to shed light on the life of Sayyida Fidda alayha salam, bi'a'tabar that very little recognition and importance is given to Sayyida Fidda, even though she participated in the grief of Ali Muhammad and the grief of Imam Al-Hussain, not only in Karbala but prior to Karbala. For those of us who are blessed to go to Sham, for the ziyarah of Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra, becomes incumbent to perform the ziyarah of Sayyidah Fidda in Bab al-Saghir. And how her grave ended up in Bab al-Saghir is something we will touch on as well. All of this with the barakat of as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahibai, traditions mention that Sayyidah Zainab or Sayyidah Fidda alayha salam was brought into Medina during the days of Rasulullah upon the establishment of the government of Rasulullah in Medina. For Sayyidah Fidda's recorded history within the Islamic books begins from the Madani period of Rasulullah's Risala. And historians mention that she was brought into Medina as a slave. According to a number of the historians who are from the Mukhalifin, they are of the opinion that Sayyidah Fidda came to Medina after the victory of Khaybar, when Ja'far al-Tayyar alayhi salam was returning back from Abyssinia. And hence, when he returned back to Abyssinia with the first set of Muslim immigrants, the people who returned with them, in addition to those original immigrants, were a number of people from Abyssinia who had converted to Islam under the leadership and the guidance of Ja'far al-Tayyar. For one of these women was Sayyidah Fidda. For you find that within the books of the Mukhalifin, it is stated that Sayyidah Fidda was Habashiyya, yani Ethiopian in descent, when she came into Medina as a slave. This is her entry into the books of Islamic history. However, when you compare this with the history that is narrated through either the scholars of Ahlul Bayt or by Ahlul Bayt themselves, you find that there is a great difference. We have within the books of our history and the number of historians, and at the very forefront, Alama Majlisi Rahmatullah alayhi in Biharul Anwar, who states that Sayyidah Fidda was actually the daughter of a queen or the daughter of a king from the previous kings of India, Min Muluk al-Hind. This is one. So when it comes to understanding the background of Sayyidah Fidda, you have one opinion which is mashhur amongst the Mukhalifin, that she was from Habash, from Ethiopia. And then you have a set of scholars who come forward and state that she was actually the daughter of a queen from India. And then you have a third set of narrations, and this is backed by the word of a Ma'soom Kalam, in that in Kitab al-Isaba, on authority of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq, Ruhi lahul Fida, he states that Sayyidah Fidda alayha salam was actually from the land of Nubia. Nubia, in present day geography, is the land north of Sudan and south of Egypt. And you find that there was this Nubian civilization that existed, and a very rich civilization that existed. When you look at the words of Imam as-Sadiq and when you interpret history, Aqidah plays a big role, and Usuluddin plays a big role when it comes to establishing a number of historical perspectives. As you know, a chain of narration has very little value when it comes to evaluating historical narrations. For Ilm al-Rijal in itself does not play a critical role when it comes to evaluating or authenticating historical traditions. Otherwise, if Ilm al-Rijal, when somebody comes and says Fulan historical hadith was da'if, doesn't academically make a lot of sense, doesn't show a lot of academic strength. And one example of this is a whole bahath within Usul al-Fiqh and Usul al-Rijal. But to give you one example, if this was the case, then a number of the miracles and the mu'jizat that are recorded in the books of history that were performed by Rasulullah would be da'if. Because these, for example, you take the miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. It says from the miracles of Rasulullah that there was one miracle when the Quraysh said to him, if you are truly a prophet, can you make this tree move from its roots, the palm tree, and let it walk towards you and then go back? Rasulullah said, of course. So with the Ismul A'adam that is bestowed upon him, the date, the palm tree, uprooted itself, moved towards Rasulullah, attested to the Shahada of Rasulullah, and returned back. They said, if we can do this, can you make half the tree come and the bottom half with the roots established on the ground, in the earth? Rasulullah said yes. They made it come forward, it went back. Quraysh said, this is from the magic of the children of Abdul Muttalib. This mu'jiza is narrated by who? This mu'jiza, if you refer back to majority of the books, you will find that this was narrated by Abu Lahab. For if you come from a Rijali perspective, hadith that emanates from Abu Lahab credible or la? La. You would come and you would say that this mu'jiza is da'if, not even da'if, mawdu'. For you find that historical events have a different science of authentication. There is a different science when it comes to authenticating this. In any case, for when you come to understanding now between the different historical narrations that we have in regards to the background of Sayyidah Fidda alayha salam, the Mukhalifin on one side, you have kalam between Alama Majlisi and the number of the Shia ulama, and you have Nas Sarih, text which is explicit from a Ma'asum Imam that Sayyidah Fidda was from Nubia. Therefore, with our Aqidah and our Usuluddin, you find that the word of a Ma'asum Imam has more weight over the weight of the Mukhalifin or the historians of the Mukhalifin. Aslan, there is no comparison when the word comes from a Ma'asum Imam, and then what the Mukhalifin want to say, bi ajma'ihim, doesn't matter for us. For we understand what is established is that Sayyidah Fidda's background was from Nubia. If we understand this, we come forward and we say, how could ulama, like Alama Majlisi Rahmatullah alayh, even though they have narrated this hadith of Imam As-Sadiq that she was from Nubia, somebody like Alama Majlisi comes and says that my conclusion and what is mashhur is that Sayyidah Fidda was from India. Because it is not possible that a scholar with the likes of Alama Majlisi would go against the Ma'asum Imam in a narration which he himself has narrated inside of Bihar. And over here you find that ulama who are experts within the field of history have jama' bain al-kalam. When you dig a little bit deeper into history, they come forward and they say that during that historical period, there were a number of wars that had taken place in India, in which kings were dethroned, kings were deposed, one replaced other, and from within these within these royal families that were overthrown was the royal family of Sayyidah Fidda, because her father was a king. And as they were dethroned, you know that in medieval times, whenever a royal family was dethroned, the first thing that would happen is mass execution of the monarchy. And hence a lot of them were forced to flee or into what we would call in today's day and term, self-exile. For the family of Sayyidah Fidda fell into this category, and as they fled their dethroned land in India, she ended up in Nubia. And from Nubia, this was the Mashiach of Allah Azza wa Jal, that she ended up in Abyssinia, and under the company of Ja'far al-Tayyar, she came into the city of Medina. This is in regards to the background of Sayyidah Fidda alayha salam. in that she had the descent that is Nubian and descent that was Indian as well. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If we understand this, we move a little forward in history, where she is in the city of Medina, and she is gifted as a servant by Rasulullah to Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam. And hence, Sallallahu and hence she entered into the house of Sayyidah Zahra as a servant. And this is from here you begin to see the history and the service and the adama of Sayyidah Fidda. Over here there is a point which is latif jiddan. Latif jiddan. Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidah Fidda is a khadima in her house, a servant. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Second of your loudest salawat to hasten the reappearance of Mawlana Sahib al-Amr. There's a point which is absolutely latif. Sayyidah Fidda alayha salam belonged to a royal family. Sah. Her masir was such that she ended up being a servant in the house of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. Sahih? If Sayyidah Fidda was to remain as part of a royal family that ruled over India, perhaps the books of histories would have no dhikr of her today. How many kings, how many monarchies came and went? We don't even know the names of those kings, leave aside their children and their daughters. She came into the khidmah, servitude of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. Her name became eternal. Today you and I are seated here 1400 years later to revive the dhikr of this lady who gained the sharaf through servitude to Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. The sharaf that there is in service to Sayyidah Zahra and service to Imam Al-Hussain without any sort of takabbur in any form or shape raises us towards eternity. And Sayyidah Fidda is kalam, or Sayyidah Fidda is proof in this. For she comes into the house of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen as a servant. And what you find within the books of history, zahiran, what is apparent or what is narrated as an apparent reason, is that she was brought into the house of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra so that she could assist in the chores of maintaining a house, because maintaining a house and completing all the household chores was a difficult task and a very demanding task at that time. Bread was baked by hand, the clothes were washed, everything was done. This is what the books of history narrate. If you were to contemplate over history and the role of Sayyidah Fidda in service towards the wilayah of Ali Muhammad, you find that Rasulullah gifted Sayyidah Fidda to Sayyidah Zahra for a far greater purpose. And that purpose was to uphold the wilayah of Ali Muhammad. And you notice this within the seerah of Sayyidah Fidda alayha salam. You find that from within the manaqib of Sayyidah Fidda alayha salam is that she is part of the verse of the Quran in Surah Al-Insan, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. Fani, I don't repeat what you already know in this sense, that the two Imamain were not in the best of health and another was made and they fasted and they gave their iftar for 3 days. This verse that comes down and is revealed was revealed upon who? Amir Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, Imamain al-Hassanain, and Sayyida Fidda. You can see from the tarbiyah of Sayyida Fidda and the ma'arif and the ma'alim that she had gained from the household of Amir and the household of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen had elevated her to the ranks such that the Lord of the universe reveals verses of the Quran in her honor. Not only verses of Quran in her honor, verses of Quran that place her under the umbrella of Ahlul Bayt. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. يُطْعِمُونَ, you know, verbal tense that includes jama', yani pluralistic, because plural in the sense that it includes more than one individual. That one individual, more than one individual, yut'imuna, this jam' where you have 4 of the ashab al-kisa, but the lafz al-jam' includes Sayyida Fidda as well. So in itself is shay'un azim in the way that she has been involved in this one umbrella, speaks about her maqam. You find that Sayyida Fidda's contribution towards the wilayah of Ali Muhammad begins from the time of the istishhad of the Holy Prophet. Do you know majority of the narrations that we have received today, majority of the narrations that do not emanate from a ma'asum imam in regards to the final days and the trials and the tribulations of Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra emanate from Sayyida Fidda. Sayyida Fidda narrates the grief with which Sayyida Zahra lived during the end times of her life in her conversation with Waraka, one of the companions of Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen in the city of Makkah. Majority of our understanding of what happened during or how the Bayt al-Huzn was built and why Bayt al-Huzn was built in Jannatul Baqi is due to the history that was preserved by Sayyida Fidda alayha salam. Number 2, Sayyida Fidda was the first point of assistance for Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra when she was assaulted behind the door and the wall. As she was crushed between the door and the wall, it's narrated 2 people assaulted her. 2 of many. Umar ibn Khattab and Khalid bin Walid. When Khalid bin Walid assaulted Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, Umar ibn Khattab returned back and he kicked Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen in such a manner Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam calls out, Ya Fidda, Sannidi Mawlatik. Ya Fidda, go and be a source of support for your master. Because this, Yani Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra, this is when Sayyid Muhsin became Shaheed. Sayyida Fidda then goes to Amir al-Mu'mineen, and it was Sayyida Fidda who conveys the news of the martyrdom of Muhsin to Amir al-Mu'mineen. فَقَدْ لَقَى بِجَدِّهِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. She says, indeed, the unborn child shall meet with his grandfather Rasulullah. This was the maqam in which Sayyida Fidda was, to be this assistance towards Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra in this time of tragedy, and to be the one to convey the news of the shahada of Sayyid Qasim to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And you find that the dawr of Sayyida Fidda continues, for upon the martyrdom of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen, Sayyida Fidda migrated to the city of Kufa when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam established the Zahiri Khilafah from the city of Kufa. And you have within the narrations and from Kitabul Isaba that a lot of the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen in terms of his zuhud and his taqwa is narrated by Sayyida Fidda. And Sayyida Fidda was actually in charge of the meals of Amir al-Mu'mineen, which is why you have within one of the narrations that a companion comes to visit Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he sees Amir sitting in the heat of the sun, scorching sun, sun of Iraq. He says in front of him is yogurt, which is absolutely sour. You say yogurt that has gone sour. It's yogurt which is usually few days away from going stale. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Khalif of the Muslim Ummah. You could think about him in today's day and age. A leader over an empire that stretches 50 to 60 present-day countries. Wealth of the Islamic lands was at his disposal. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam eats yogurt that is a few days away from going stale, and bread that had hardened. The Rawi says, I watched Amir al-Mu'mineen, I observed him. He would break the bread. You've seen when bread goes hard, khubz that goes hard, and you have to snap it into two. Amir al-Mu'mineen would snap this, and he would dip this bread inside of this sour yogurt, which is a few days away from being stale. And he would eat. The Rawi says, when he could then snap the bread with his hands, he would snap the bread on his knee. When Amir al-Mu'mineen was asked, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, to paraphrase, as the leader of the Muslim Ummah, I cannot eat a meal that is greater than the lowest person in the empire. This is called Muwasat al-Fuqara, which is from Fiqh al-Siyasa. The asl when it comes to politics and leadership is that the leader of the Muslims is to sympathize and empathize and share in the poverty of the lowest person. And now you look into our countries, so-called Islamic countries. Even if you find an Islamic country that calls out for so-called justice or this or that, and they take political stances, and due to political stances you find it is the nations and the masses that suffer. At the end of the day, the one who plays the politics eats his meals, his children are well fed, their stomachs are full. It's the one at the lowest. Amir al-Mu'mineen says we sympathize with them in the sense that we feel and we live their grief. The Rawi goes to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he sees this, and he sees Sayyida Fidda is the one who gives Amir al-Mu'mineen the hard pieces of bread in a bag. And he says to her, Ya Amatallah, ala tattaqillah fi hadha al-Sheikh. She says to him, O slave of Allah, do you not fear Allah when it comes to the food of this Sheikh, Amir al-Mu'mineen? Could you not at least soften the bread or give him bread that is fresher? Sayyidah Fidda says, and we tried to put fresh bread for him in the bag without him knowing. But when he realized the bread is fresh, he would seal the bag and hide it from us. I say the Fidda records and narrates for us this element of political leadership that is matloob in Islam. Contribution of Sayyidah Fidda in narrating the legacy and upholding the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt. And you find upon the martyrdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen, when Ibn Muljim al-La'in was brought into the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, one of the first people to rebuke Ibn Muljim was Sayyidah Fidda, until Imam Hassan alayhi salam asks her to have sabr and to return back into the house with the rest of the women. And you find that Sayyidah Fidda's service with Ahlul Bayt continues because she remained within the company and service of Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra alayhi salam during the time of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, and the 10 years in which Imam al-Hussain stayed in the city of Medina upon the martyrdom of Imam Hassan. And the historians narrate that from amongst the Qafila of Imam al-Hussain that left the city of Medina, from Medina to Mecca and Mecca to Karbala, Sayyidah Fidda was part of this Qafila, in the company of Sayyidah Zainab, in the shadow of Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra. And she experienced the hunger and the thirst from the 7th of Muharram until Yawm Ashura. And she was taken as a prisoner from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. Our teachers in the Hausa used to say that they used to hear from the khutbah before them. With Sayyidah Fidda's service and loyalty to Ahlul Bayt, many times it was Sayyidah Fidda who threw herself on top of the children, such that the whips of shimmer would fall on her back before they fell on the back of the children. Because you have a hadith from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam where he states that every time the eyes of the women, our eyes, when he says our eyes, yani Sabaya, himself and the women, he says every time between Kufa to Sham our eyes teared up, they would come وَتَعَنُونَ بِالرُّمْحِ عَلَى رُؤُوسِنَا. They would come and they would hit us with spears on our head. Entum mu'mineen, you have children, you have nephews, you have younger sisters or brothers. You take a 3-year-old girl, you take a 4-year-old girl, and the severed head of her father on a spear. If this girl, when she looks at the head of her father, if she doesn't cry, what will she do? How many tears these girls fell from their eyes? No, these many times they were hit with spears on their head. And it was at that time and times like these that Sayyidah Fidda threw herself on top of the children such that she gets the hit and the pain. But Sayyidah Sukaina says, Alama Mazandarani Rahmatullah alayhi mentions within his Maktal that as the women were entering into Sham, if the women slowed down in their walk, they were whipped by Zajar ibn Qais al-La'in. For when the women were being pulled, and you know, children, 4 years, 5 years of age, who have barely eaten food, who have barely had water to drink, how much strength there can be on the legs. May Allah give each and every one of us the opportunity to walk to Karbala. But Ali, I ask you, and over here, Zair of Imam Al-Hussain who has walked to Karbala will be able to feel this musibah. Enter as an adult who has been fully fed in the mawkibs, whose thirst is fully quenched to walk 90 kilometers. Enter Zair. How many times your feet have given up on you, you have to sit down. You have people to come and rub your feet. You have people to come and take care of you. But after eating, in your full strength as a man, your legs give up on you. Then what about the Aitam of Imam Hussein at the age of 4 and 5? Their legs gave up on them. Their legs gave up. The Maktal mentions the girls, the children couldn't walk anymore. They were whipped every time they slowed down in the walk. Sayyida Fidda came and put her back over the backs of the children. I Sayyida Fidda alayha salam sharika in the Masa'ib of Ali Muhammad, until the historians mention that she returned back to Medina with Sayyida Zainab, and when Sayyida Zainab was exiled to Sham, Sayyida Zainab left with Sayyida Fidda and with Sayyida Sukaina. Sayyida Sukaina bint Amir al-Mu'mineen. And all three remained in Sham until their martyrdom. Hence Sayyida Fidda buried in Babu Saghira. And Ba'ad, Sayyida Fidda played one important role. Tonight is the night of first of Safa. Tonight is a night of Masaib and a night of Azab. Maqatil mention that Sayyid al-Shuhada's body on the day of Ashura was trampled 3 times. The first time, this is mentioned inside of Ziyarat al-Nahiya. So the Masaib is from Imam al-Hujjah himself. He says, and when Imam Al-Hussain fell off his horse, and they trampled upon you with the horses. And they started to trample over the body of Imam Al-Hussain while he was still alive. And upon the martyrdom of Imam Al-Hussain, Umar ibn Sa'ad towards Sham Qariban brings 10 horsemen. And he says, who is there to trample on the chest of Imam Al-Hussain? Man li an yashaq ala sadr al-Hussain. Look at the words that are used. The chest of Imam Al-Hussain. Who is there to trample on the chest of Imam Al-Hussain? So they trampled on the chest of Imam Al-Hussain, 10 horsemen. They trampled on the chest. Umar ibn Sa'ad says, فَإِسْحَقُوهُ عَلَى ظَهْرِ. Trample on the back of him. If you put your hand on your chest and you put your hand on your back, what is there remaining in the body to trample when you have trampled the chest of Imam Al-Hussain? Which is why one of them, when they go to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, they say to him, when we trampled on the body of Imam Al-Hussain, the words he uses, he says, وَتَحَنَّا وَتَحْنًا. We grounded his bones and his flesh into the fire. On the 11th of Muharram, Umar ibn Sa'ad, upon burying his dead, as they are leaving past Karbala, Umar ibn Sa'ad gives a directive for this already mangled body of Imam Al-Hussain to be trampled one more time, which would have been the fourth time. Which is why over here, Arbab al-Maqatil mentioned when Sayyidah Fidda did this, she raised her hand in dua and asked through the wasila of Rasulullah for a protector to be sent to guard the body of Imam al-Hussain. And it is through this dua that a lion came and stood by the body of Imam al-Hussain. So the maqam of the lion in Karbala is a maqam that is known as Sher Fizza, yani the lion of Sayyidah Fidda, the one for which she did dua. The historians mention that this lion wept and protected the body of Imam al-Hussain from Yawm Ashura, yani from 11th of Muharram until Imam Sajjad came back to bury the Shuhada on the 13th of Muharram. When Umar ibn Sa'ad saw the lion by the body of Imam al-Hussain, he said, and the magic of Abdul Muttalib has come back again. Because they used to, like we said at the beginning of the Majlis, accuse Rasulullah of magic. The Masa'ib of first of Shahr al-Safwa. There is very few times and tears are shed just on the severed head of Sayyid al-Shuhada. By tonight, I want to mention for you 3 things that happened with the blessed head of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And when you look into this, you will find that Imam al-Hussain, even though the head was severed from the body, the severed head of Imam al-Hussain was the protector of the Qafilah to a great extent. The first incident, the historians mention when the severed head of Imam al-Hussain was brought into Kufa and was paraded in the markets and brought into the palace of Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad then commanded for the head of Imam al-Hussain to be hanged in the market in Kufa. The Maqatil mentioned that from the miracles of the blessed head of Imam al-Hussain, the blessed head of Imam al-Hussain began to recite verses of Surah Al-Kahf. So the people from the city of Kufa began to gather around the head and they began to talk and discuss themselves over the speaking and the miraculous recitation of the Quran from the head. Allah. Sheikh al-Mazandarani mentions that when Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad heard that the head of Imam al-Hussain is reciting the Quran and there may be a fitna amongst the people of Kufa, he sent one of his men and said, whip the head of Imam al-Hussain, whip the head of Imam al-Hussain until the recitation of the Quran stopped. The Rawi mentions that with the first stroke of the whip, blood began to flow down from the forehead. Allah, Ya Shaitan Muhammad. Before this, the head of Imam al-Hussain is brought, into the palace of Ibn Ziyad and is placed on a tasht in front of him. And while it was on a tasht, the women were brought into the palace of Ibn Ziyad together with the Imam al-Sajjad. And then Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad said, for the head that is on a tasht, place it back on the spear and keep it upright by the throne. Keep it upright by the throne. Over here, while this happens, Ibn Ziyad al-La'in looks at Imam al-Sajjad and he says to him, who are you? They said his name is Ali. Ibn Ziyad says, Ama qatalallahu aliyan fi Karbala. Did Allah not kill Ali in Karbala? Ibn Ziyad says, or Imam Sajjad replies and says, Kana li akh akbar minni ismuhu Ali. I had a brother who was elder to me, his name was Ali. Qatalahu nas, it is the people who killed him. Ibn Ziyad al-Na'im was taken back by fury and by rage. And he said to him, do you have the audacity to reply back to me? You have the audacity to talk back to me? And he gave an order, kill him, behead Imam Sajjad. When Sayyida Zainab heard behead him, the Makatil tell us that Sayyida Zainab threw herself on Imam Sajjad. Sheikh al-Mazandarani says there are two things that happened here. There is what was done here and what was within the ghaib. And the ghaibi reasons that are not talked about as much. It says when Sayyida Zainab threw herself on Imam al-Sajjad, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad was about to whip Sayyida Zainab. He says Ibn Ziyad lifted his whip to whip Sayyida Zainab, and at that point Ibn Ziyad's son was in the palace. So when Ibn Ziyad was going to whip Sayyida Zainab, the son held the father's hand, he held Ibn Ziyad's hand. He said to him, Father, don't hit this woman. Ibn Ziyad looked at him and he said, why? He says, Father, when you lifted the whip, I saw the severed head of the spear turn towards Zainab. This is the final part of the Masai. Sabaya are traveling from Kufa to Sham. And on one of the nights in the desert, as they were traveling on the camel, there were 2 children or 2 women per camel. So the 2 people were sitting on the camel. If you have 2, the other person is called an adil, yani the partner who is seated with you. These women and these children were tied with ropes, 2 on every camel. The historians mention that on one of the nights, the enemies were trying to cover big distances by traveling in the night because they would take rest during the day under the heat. And even when they took rest in the daytime, they put themselves in the shades where they put the women and the children under the sun. So in the night time they were covering distance. They would make the camels run in the fastest of their speeds. It says on one of the nights that the camels were running for the fastest speeds, because the camel can only run a fast distance for a very short period. He says, I was looking up some of these things. Do you know they say that the camel can run almost as fast as 20 miles an hour? It says as the camel was running at its fastest speed, one of the yatimas of Imam Al-Hussain fell off the camel. Allah, ya Shia, can you imagine falling out from a vehicle that is going at 20 miles? This is a child that has fallen off the camel onto the desert. Her hands are tied. How she fell, on the face, on the back, we don't know. But the child fell off the camel. The caravan is continuing. The caravan is continuing because they have to cover distance. This yatima of Imam Al-Hussain, we know is Sayyida Ruqayya. Allah, the girl is running behind the kafila. The girl is running behind the kafila. They will not stop for her. The kafila has gone forward. The young yatim of Imam Al-Hussain, Sayyida Ruqayya, she's left in the darkness of the desert all by herself, sometimes crying out, Abata, Abata, other times crying out, Wa Amma. When the yatima fell off the ground, when she fell off the camel, was a distance between the girl and the rest of the camels. The spear on which the head of Imam Al-Hussain was, the spear planted itself into the desert. Shimar al-Ain says, we tried to remove the spear, it would not move. 2 of us, 3 of us, the spear would not come out. We understood that over here there is something that is ghaibi. He said, what should we do? He said, ask Ali ibn al-Hussain. They came to Imam Sajjad, they said, the spear on which the head of your father is planted onto the earth and will not come out. What has happened over here? Imam al-Sajjad looked at the spear. He looked at the head of Imam al-Hussain with tears rolling down his eyes. He said, لَقَدْ فَقَدْتُمْ يَتِيمَةَ الْحُسَيْنِ. You have lost one of the orphans of Abu Abdullah. Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra begins to weep and cry. He says, go and find the daughter of Hussein. He says, in which direction should we run? Imam Sajjad says, look at the head of the Imam. The direction in which the head is looking, you will find the yatima. Allah, Allah, this is the final part of the Masaib. Sayyidah Zainab goes running into the desert crying out, Wa Ruqayya, where is my daughter Ruqayya? She goes running into the desert. She sees Sayyidah Ruqayya sitting on the desert sands. She's weeping and she is crying. Sayyidah Zainab hugs her. She says, my daughter Ruqayya. Do you know the first thing Sayyidah Ruqayya said to her? And my Masaib is finished there. Sayyidah Ruqayya says to her 2 things. She says, Auntie Zainab, why did you leave me? The fear of the night in the desert alone. The second thing she says, Auntie Zainab, my feet are bleeding with thorns.
करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं मातम हरम अब्बास का, हो गया मरना सितम अब्बास का। करते हैं सकीना नौहाए आबिद का था हाय सकीना नौहाए आबिद का था हाय सकीना आगे के सादिया हाय सकीना हाय सकीना बिन बाप के बेटे को सताया नहीं करते ये कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना जो हाय आबिद का था हाय सकीना जो हाय आबिद का था हाय सकीना ये कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना बिन बाप के बेटों को सताया नहीं करते ये कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना जो हाय आबिद का था हाय सकीना जो हाय आबिद का था हाय सकीना ये कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना दुनिया में यतीमों को रुलाया नहीं करते आगे कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना नौहाए आबिद का था हाय सकीना नौहाए आबिद का था हाय सकीना आगे कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना दुनिया में यतीमों को सताया नहीं करते आगे कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना हाय आबिद का था हाय सकीना हाय आबिद का था हाय सकीना आगे कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना बिन बाप के बेटे को सताया नहीं करते आगे कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला हाय सकीना नौहाए आबिद का था हाय सकीना नौहाए आबिद का था हाय सकीना आगे कैसा दिया हाय सकीना वावेला से आई है ज़ैनब माजाई है ज़ैनब ए लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई है ज़ैनब सरलाई है ज़ैनब लुट के कैद से आई है ज़ैनब आई है ज़ैनब ए लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई है ज़ैनब सरलाई है मरते हुए मुझे सौंप गए थे वो दिल्ली को शाम में खो आई है ज़ैनब आई है ज़ैनब ए लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई है ज़ैनब सरलाई है ज़ैनब लुट के कैद से आई है ज़ैनब आई है ज़ैनब ए लाशाए बेसर तेरा मरते हुए गए थे वो दिल्ली को शाम में खो आई है ज़ैनब आई है ज़ैनब ए लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई है ज़ैनब सरलाई है ज़ैनब छुप के कैद से आई है ज़ैनब लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई मेरे दुनिया से बहुत रंज से आई है ज़ैनब आई है ज़ैनब ए लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई है ज़ैनब सरलाई है ज़ैनब छुट के कैद से आई है ज़ैनब लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई तने बाशी पे इस जंगल और में बदला मुझे अब चुके आई है ज़ैनब आई है ज़ैनब ए लाशाए बेसर तेरा सरलाई है ज़ैनब आई है ज़ैनब کجا است از قتل حسین این صلی علیه این صلی علیه این صلی علیه از قتل حسین بگو سکین عمو ای آب کجا است عباس کجا است از قتل حسین این صلی علیه این صلی علیه این صلی علیه از قتل حسین این راه خدا است شکر خدا از قتل حسین این صلی علیه این صلی علیه این صلی علیه از قتل حسین این صلی علیه این صلی علیه این صلی علیه از قتل حسین این صلی علیه این صلی علیه این صلی علیه از قتل حسین شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم هستم جدا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم باز علم هستم رو شیدی نوا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم هستم جدا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم باز علم دارم چی شد اصغر بشیرم چی شد سر حسین مظلوم هستم جدا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم باز علم هستم رو شیدی نوا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم هستم جدا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو شی کربلا هستم رو سر حسین مظلوم
آب نمیخواهم جانم من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم سرکای شهیدان عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم سرکای شهیدانم من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم سرکای شهیدانم ای عمه جوان من ای روح روان من درد تو بحال من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم مرحبا عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم سرکای شهیدانم عباس علم دارم سکای یتیمانم میمونی سبه یارم من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم سرکای شهیدانم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم سرکای شهیدانم من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم عباس عمو جانم من آب نمیخواهم سرکای شهیدانم بینوها حسینم سر جدا حسینم به اقربا شربت پہ دلانا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا تم فاتحہ شربت پہ تم فاتحہ شربت پہ اگر بعد میرے پانی میسر تمہیں ہوئے پہلے تم سکینہ کو پلانا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا تم فاتحہ شربت سے تم فاتحہ شربت سے مقتل کی طرف سے تمہیں لے جائیں گے ظالم پیاری کو علم نہ دکھانا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا تم فاتحہ شربت سے تم فاتحہ شربت سے زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا تم فاتحہ شربت پہ دلانا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا زینب میری بہنا دکھیا میری بہنا تم فاتحہ شربت سے تم فاتحہ شربت سے اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر زہرا پکارتی ہے کہ فریاد یا خدا میرا حسین دھوپ کے اندر جل رہا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر بدلاؤ میں ستاتا ہوں یا تم ستاتے ہو میں تو دعائیں دیتا ہوں تم دل جلاتے ہو اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا جو خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا دریا بھی رو دیا ہے سمندر بھی رو دیا نازک گلے کو دیکھ کے خنجر بھی رو دیا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا کافر تلک پیے نہ تم منع کیجیو ایک فاطمہ کے لال کو پانی نہ دیجیو اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا خدا سبیل راہ خدا نے حسین کا اللہ کیا جگر تھا جفان میرے اصغر تجھ کو جو پائے مادر مستع تجھ کو جو پائے مادر مستع پانی پلاؤ میرے اصغر جھولا جھولاؤں دودھ پلاؤں میرے اصغر تجھ کو جو پائے مادر مستع تجھ کو جو پائے مادر مستع پانی پلاؤں میرے اصغر تجھ کو سناؤں قصہ اکبر میں جھولاؤں میرے اصغر تجھ کو جو پائے مادر مستع تجھ کو جو پائے مادر مستع پانی پلاؤں میرے اصغر جھولا جھولاؤں دودھ پلاؤں شبهای برادر پیش فیه باز مشهد خانم میدم برو آقام سجادا گفت لیلا گفت لیلا ای جانم نامرادم ای جانم نامرادم جانم میدم ناد علیم علیم یا علی ناد علیم علیم یا علی یا علی بادشاہ چوک شہر یا علی ناد علیم علیم یا علی یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
Hey Zainab, hey Sham, 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 hey Zainab, hey شاہ وفا اب تو آ جاؤ شہنشاہ 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 وفا اب تو آ शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा छीन कर सब की रिदाएं और जलाए खैमे छीन कर सब की रिदाएं और जलाए खैमे ऐसे लूटा है मुसलमानों ने ऐसे लूटा है मुसलमानों ने ना किया आले मोहम्मद का हया अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा 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 रो रो कहती थी सकीना रन में रो रो कहती थी सकीना रन में उठ गई सानिया ज़हरा शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ 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 शहंशाह है वफा तुमको अब्बास की ताकत पे भरोसा था बहुत तुमको अब्बास की ताकत पे भरोसा था बहुत कैद होने से बचाए तुमको कैद होने से बचाए तुमको आके ये शिमर ने ज़ैनब से कहा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा तुमको अब्बास की ताकत पे भरोसा था बहुत तुमको अब्बास की ताकत पे भरोसा था बहुत कैद होने से बचाए तुमको कैद होने से बचाए तुमको आके ये शिमर ने ज़ैनब से कहा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा 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 रो रो कहती थी सकीना रन में रो रो कहती थी सकीना रन में उठ गई सानिया ज़हरा की रिदाएं अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा तोड़ दीवार के अकबर के जिगर में बरछी तोड़ दीवार के अकबर के जिगर में बरछी और सितम ने कहा मौला से और सितम ने कहा मौला से ये सुना है कि तू साबिर है भरा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा अब तो आ जाओ शहंशाह है वफा
गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना गैरत मरियम तेरा बाजार में जाना مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا ہے نہ بھول سکے گا اس تحشر زمانہ غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا بھائی کیوں زینب کلثوم کی چھڑتی ہر دائیں کیوں زینب کلثوم کی چھڑتی ہر دائیں چاہو ارے لوگو میرے غازی کو بلانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا 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 بھائی کیوں زینب کلثوم کی چھڑتی ہر دائیں کیوں زینب کلثوم کی ہر دائیں جاؤ ارے لوگو میرے غازی کو بلانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا ہے نہ بھول سکے گا اس تحشر زمانہ اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا بھائی جس گھر پہ سلامی دیا کرتے ہیں پیغمبر جس گھر پہ سلامی دیا کرتے ہیں پیغمبر پیرو مسلمان تو وہی کلمہ جلانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا 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 بھائی تو دختر زہرا ہے نواسی ہے نبی کی تو دختر زہرا ہے نواسی ہے نبی کی بازار میں سرگم تیرا خطبہ سنانا اے غیرت تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا ہے تو دختر زہرا ہے نواسی ہے نبی کی تو دختر زہرا ہے نواسی ہے نبی کی بازار میں سرگم تیرا خطبہ سنانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا 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 نہ بھول سکے گا اس حشر زمانہ اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا نیند آئی بلا کیسے سکینہ کو زمین پر نیند آئی بلا کیسے سکینہ کو زمین پر تو نے سکھایا اسے سینے پہ سلانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا سکینہ کو زمین پر نیند آئی بلا کے سکینہ کو زمین پر تو نے ہی سکھایا اسے سینے پہ سلانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا 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 اسلام پہ دو بیٹوں کو قربان کیا ہے اسلام پہ دو بیٹوں کو قربان کیا ہے قسمت میں تیری لے ہے یہ ڈاک اٹھانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا ہے نہ بھول سکے گا اس حشر زمانہ اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا ہے اسلام پہ دو بیٹوں کو قربان کیا ہے اسلام پہ دو بیٹوں کو قربان کیا ہے قسمت میں تیرے لیے ہے یہ ڈاک اٹھانا اے غیرت مریم تیرا بازار میں جانا 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 ہو یا کربل ہو یا کربل ہو یا کربل آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی تو جزی سے زمین پہ کیا آیا 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 سمرتے میں تھکا گیا غازی زارا جایا آسرا 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 ہر جگہ تو حسین چن آئے 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 پھر بھی پورا نہ مل سکا غازی ہر جگہ تو حسین چن آئے 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 پھر بھی پورا نہ مل سکا غازی زارا جایا آسرا 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 غازی جن سے اجداد کا لیا بدلا 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 ایک سکینہ وہ دوسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا 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 غازی شمر سر کاٹتا ہے اور شبیر 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 نام لیتا ہے بس تیرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا 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 ہے مارتا ہے نہیں سکینہ کو مارتا ہے نہیں سکینہ کو ہے مارتا ہے نہیں سکینہ کو اور ہنس کے کہتا ہے اب بلا غازی آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی سر سے زینب کے لے گئے چادر 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 سب سے مقتل رہ گیا غازی زارا جایا آسرا 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 غازی ہویا کربل ہویا کربل ہویا کربل دے وچ جدا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی مارتا ہے نئی سکینہ کو 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 ہنس کے کہتا ہے اب بڑھا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا غازی زارا جایا آسرا
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم
أزور سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجاي زخري وزخيرتي في آخرتي ودنياي الإمام الحسين عليه السلام زيارة مني ونيابة عن والدي وعن والد والدي وأن أخواني وأخواتي وأن جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات كربة إلى الله تعالى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولى وابن مولى السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء السلطان السلطان أبا الحسن علي المرتضى كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل على ظهورك يا ابن الحسن يا ابن الحسن. عجل على ظهورك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
اللهم كل وليك حسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آله في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا معينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. لبيك يا حسين. 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 لبيك يا حسين.
أحسنت.